I just would like to report on what I think is happening at Church of Gayle. I have not heard from Brent since he told me that they had an emergency and the Jesuits were photon torpedoing Church of Gayle, and they went light years into outer space, and even though they lost their life support. But from what I am hearing from him brain to brain on a regular basis, so it appears that he's all right. But until I hear from him through email or other means, I'm not 100% sure all my brain-to-brain communications are accurate, but I'm fairly certain that Brent Spiner's all right, because the voice in my mind that's talking to me does sound like him. It doesn't sound like an imposter. From what I understand, one of my men did die, and the Lord Jesus had to bring him back. He went to heaven and came back. But I'm not going to report any more on this until I'm sure of the facts. Though it appears that Jesus has been doing some miracles, and he's right now, Church of Gayle, I believe, is still in outer space. It hasn't come back yet, which may explain why I haven't heard from them. I'll give you more on this when they come back, because Brent has told me brain to brain that Jesus Christ did show up and do some pretty miraculous rescues. The reason I want to go on now is I've looked at the most recent posts at Church of Gayle, and I was reading the stuff they have under the Brent Spiner section. Not Church of Gayle, Crazy Gail Wiki. I want to explain why it was that a little bit about my history with Brent Spiner in the 1990s. I did make a statement on my website that during June 1996, when I first found out about Lori McBride, that I screamed at Brent and said, "How could you have this woman when I depend totally on my husband for financial support and I could be out on the streets?" I was really brave to maintain my correspondence with Brent Spiner when I was married to my former husband. I was literally risking the streets to maintain my correspondence with him. If financial security was my prime concern, I would not have done that. You might say, well, why did you risk the streets to write Brent Spiner? It's because I sensed that Brent really loved me. Whereas I was in a cold, loveless marriage, but I sensed that Brent really loved me. And he was bringing me out and helping me to grow into the woman that God wanted me to be. But let me go back a little bit further. You might say, how could you lie to your husband? And, one time my former husband confronted me and asked me if I was still writing Brent Spiner. And I did lie and say that I wasn't writing him, but that's because I was writing Gates McFadden. So I wasn't really lying. It was like a white lie. You might say, well, how can you say that Jesus would give you his semen in the millennium? To be honest with you, I don't completely understand myself why Jesus favors me in that manner. I mean, I don't see myself as anything special, but, you got to understand, Jesus, he judges by the heart, not by the outward appearance. And despite how the Jesuits try to portray me at Crazy Gail Wiki, I really do have an unusual heart. I have literally risked my life to defend my men. And, there have been times when I could have betrayed Brent Spiner or Vladimir Putin or Franco Nero. In 1998, when my mobile home was being burned down, I actually had Jesuit police officers come over to my place and say, "You must have made somebody awful mad that somebody would set fires around your mobile home. Do you have any idea who you could have made mad?" And I didn't open my mouth. I didn't tell them anything about Brent's wiretap on my phone. I kept my mouth shut. I was determined to protect Brent. And that's one of the reasons Brent loves me, because he knows that. Even though he was a celebrity, I never ever tried to use his celebrity status to gain financial gain for myself. I truly loved him, and Brent knows that. He knows I wasn't enamored with his. During the 1990s, I kept my mouth shut about Brent Spiner. And my reason for doing that was to protect him. The only reason I've opened up now in the 21st century is because the lies have just gotten so out of hand, and it's so unfair to Brent that they've matched him up with Lori McBride when he's never cared about her, that it's broken his heart. Back in 2002, when I kind of replaced Brent with Vladimir Putin, I can still remember, and I haven't mentioned this at my website, but I remember this. It was around September 2002 when I thought that Vladimir Putin was going to come get me as his wife, and I was packed. I had all my bags ready, and I was ready to go with him. And I sensed that Brent Spiner was just crying because he wanted to marry me. So it's not that he didn't want me to go to Vladimir Putin, but he was just in tears because he wanted to marry me so bad, and the Jesuits were causing so many problems. He really loved me. The only reason I tried to go to Vladimir was because I just came to the conclusion that I needed a president in my life, and that the Jesuits, because of they did 9/11 to keep me from Brent, I knew that I couldn't go to him back then. It was impossible. In fact, it'll be impossible for me to go to him ever unless Jesus does a miracle for me and Brent, because the Jesuits are so fanatically obsessed with it. But money, you might say, well, and then you made it. Then why did you say that you were angry at Brent? You screamed at him, and when you found out about Lori McBride, saying, I literally risked the streets to write you, and you have this girlfriend. Well, I was starting to doubt whether he really comprehended how brave I was being for him. I started doubting whether he was really as committed to me as he should have been, considering how courageous I was being in maintaining my correspondence with him. And I found out later that she was a Jesuit agent, so I forgave him. But that was the thing. I didn't even think about money when I was with him. I was just so enamored with our relationship, with the awesomeness of it. It just made me feel like I was reaching to the heavens. And the only time it's just that I just felt like he needed to appreciate what a risk I was taking in writing him. Because I had not, I was without a job. I was totally dependent on my husband for support, and I had health issues too. And I wasn't sure that I would be able to maintain a job because of my health. And my ex-husband did threaten divorce if I wrote Brent, but I literally risked the streets. I was a very courageous woman. I still am a very courageous woman. Right now, the Jesuits are isolating me from my family. They've replaced my mother with her clone. And at Crazy Gail Wiki, they're lying. And a lot of the statements they're putting up there that they claim that my real mother said those were actually statements made by the Jesuit clone. And the lies are just getting really out of hand. It's not fair to my family. It's not fair to my friends. I was friends with a doctor in South Carolina, a family practice doctor. And at Crazy Gail Wiki, they have put his name up there. And they're claiming that he was the psychiatrist who was working for the Jesuits. If you want to find out which psychiatrist it was who was working for the Jesuits, go to orderofthejesuits.com and find out the real name of the wicked doctor that the Jesuits used in South Carolina, okay? It was not my family practice doctor, and I'm not going to mention his name to protect his privacy, but that's what made me decide to bring a defamation lawsuit against Crazy Gail Wiki when they start bringing the names of friends of mine that don't deserve the crap that they're getting from Crazy Gail Wiki. He actually liked me, and I considered him, this doctor I considered one of my friends, and he would never work for the Jesuits. So I really don't appreciate them mentioning his name over and over at Crazy Gail Wiki. That's an invasion of his privacy, and it's also defamation because they're accusing him of being a Jesuit when he's not, and they're putting his name up there. And I hope that our lawyers will defend him and sue the butts off of these evil Jesuits for what they're doing. Taking the name of an innocent doctor, blasting his name to the public, claiming the doctor is a Jesuit when he's not, and then neglecting to mention the name of the real doctor who was the psychiatrist, the evil psychiatrist that I had in South Carolina. So I literally risked the streets to write Brent, okay? And you may say, and I actually turned him down in 1991 when he propositioned me. And it was Brent Spiner, okay, who called me in 1991. They're claiming it was a stalker. It was not a stalker. It was Brent Spiner. I am certain of it. You just don't understand Brent, okay? He's actually, when you see his, he's coming out with his YouTube, like little television series, Fresh Hell. Brent is actually quite open about his sexual feelings. And he was like that with me in 1991. And that's the way he is. And he was not a stalker. He's just very open about his sexual feelings. And that's how he was when he talked to me on the phone. But he had a lot of class at the same time. And the reason I didn't go to Brent even is because the Lord I went to God in prayer, and he said, Gayle, he promised that he would make a way for me and Brent to get together in his time, in his way, if I would do it God's way. So God said, now, back in the early 1990s, Jesus said, now is not the time, Gayle. You need to just stay where you're at and don't go commit adultery or any of those things, and I will make a way for you. And I still believe Jesus will. And that's why I turned him down and I didn't go, because Jesus gave me a promise in the early 1990s. He said, Gayle, I will give Brent to you in the future. I said, how will you do it? I'm married right now. Jesus said, I will. It's not my time right now. You need to stay where you're at. And that's why I didn't go to him. That's the real reason. I was obeying Jesus. It was very hard for me to do, but Jesus said, if you'll be patient, I'm going to make a way for you and Brent in the future, and I still believe that today.